Hello, I'm James of Pistils and Pollen. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to have you today here on my rooftop in the city of Chicago, 5 stories up, where today I'm going to give you a behind the scenes look at the building of my potager orchard garden. Come on, let's take a look. So we're already started working on this garden. We've got a lot of stuff already in place. Before I get into the details, I want to introduce you to my friend Craig from Topiarius. Craig is already busy working, so I'm going to stop you from your work. Thank you for doing it, by the way.
Not a problem.
Craig is one of the co-owners of Topiarius, and he has actually been responsible for a lot of what you see. The greenhouse that we just walked through, you designed it for me, basically. You basically are in the process of designing this roof deck garden for me. This was a space that I had not asked you to do. You saw the finished project that we did over here with the greenhouse, and you saw this untapped space and you're like, James, we need to do something with it.
So here's the deal, James. I have been, over the last 6 months, people have said, oh, like, you do such great work, like such interesting stuff. You got all these projects, what's your favorite? And I'm saying my favorite of the last probably 5-10 years is James's green roof. We want to design spaces that people live in. We want people to be outside. We want people to enjoy the outdoors. I know that you will use this space every day. Is this the most finished product? No, we've used some recycled materials. We're trying to be as economical as possible.
Keeping to my budget, which is not the largest budget.
Doing our best to keep to a budget, but to give you the space that I know that you're going to use. I mean, I know you will be out here growing vegetables. And so it was really important to me to try and find that balance.
Craig knows, you guys know, I'm up here every single day, pretty much year round as much as I can be. I'm up here with my dog, Dolce. He runs around. He's like a little suburban dog. He's got lawns, if you will. This is our backyard in the city, just up on our roof. And we're trying to, I've been growing vegetables in containers. You guys have been following me on that journey for quite some time, but now we're kind of taking it to the next level a little bit. And I've had Espalier apple trees before in containers. I had the last 2 Espalier trees for about 5 or 6 years, I think. Lost them this past winter. But now we're gonna put in 4 new Espalier apple trees.
An Espalier is a tree or a shrub that is basically trained flat. It's a space-saving technique. It also is, I mean, can be ridiculously beautiful. But the goal of it is to create a flat vertical space that is not eating up a lot of horizontal room, so that you can grow more in a small area.
And what I've found actually being on the roof is, you know, one of the ongoing challenges is always wind, right? Like, it's just regular shaped trees, they always flop over on me. And I've actually found the Espalier trees, because they're grown horizontally, the wind actually kind of moves through them, and I don't have that problem. The other reason I think we like the idea of having the Espalier here is because we kind of wanted to create a little bit of a living wall. Right?
And a screen wall, some privacy. So this is one of the things that we deal with a lot on our properties here in the city. We live close to each other, and so we want to create spaces that are private, but it's hard to do that with a tree that gets 40 feet wide when you have a 25-foot wide lot. And so we're constantly trying to, we refer to them as the tall skinnies. While that's in the ground, up here we're going to do it with Espalier. So we're going to create kind of a living wall along this side that is going to screen you from the backside of your neighbor's fence.
So while they're working already, some of your team members are here. I just wanted to walk over here and take a look at the base. So one of the concerns when you're building on a roof deck is always load and weight, right? So how does this base, what does this base do for us?
This is what would, even though it's sitting here quietly, it's referred to as live load. And there are standards for roof decks that they have to be built to 100 pounds per square foot live load. So a couple of things that we've done for this particular installation is that we're spanning, so all of the joists run this way. There is a center bearing wall that we know, because we have the architectural plans, that runs right here. So the joists are very close to the edge of that bearing wall, which makes them the strongest that they're going to be. And then we're dispersing that load as evenly as possible by building this base. The other advantage of the base is that it helps us level out, because roofs are never exactly flat, even though we call them flat.
By design, right? Because we want the water to move into the gutters and down into the drain system. So let's go ahead and we'll move over to the containers. We'll assemble them together and we'll talk a little bit more about why we're working with these containers. Okay, so we are back on the ground and we're gonna put this thing together. Now, like I said, these are from Veradek. Before we get started putting it together, I'm gonna put gloves on.
I don't wear gloves.
Greg doesn't need them.
I already cut myself today. I don't even know how.
Okay, so the way that these come, they come as a flat pack. Now, you may have already seen a little bit that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
pieces.
5 pieces plus a bunch of screws. You've already put a couple of them together. We've got one more. So that it kind of goes together like this. And then we've got these, these little just wing nuts and nuts, is that?
A bolt, a little bolt.
A bolt and a wing nut. How's plans? You know, I use hardware when I have to. This otherwise is outside my wheelhouse. Twist them a little bit with your fingers, and then you have to use.
It works better if you're not using gloves.
That's why this thing takes me forever.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody has a loading dock and crews to unload big, heavy things. And so the flat pack containers, it's a great option for people who are do-it-yourselfers.
If this came in one big piece, this is a ginormous box. I can't carry this box up by myself because it's just too heavy. But the smaller size planters that I have elsewhere in my garden that are square, those are less than 50 pounds. I'm able to do that comfortably up the stairs or use a dolly or something like that. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get this finished and then get the bottom on. All right, now we're just gonna put the base on. So yeah, you can go ahead and do that. I put these little, I don't know, those are not wing nuts, a different kind of nut inside there, so that these little screws will then sort of go in and we'll be able to screw them in. Although
this is gonna help get this thing in square too, because it is currently not.
A little square. All right, I'll start at this. So are we ready to lift it and put it on the base?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're doing now is, correct me if I'm wrong, Craig, but we're putting the irrigation in through one of the holes, drainage holes.
You can get by hand watering at ground level. I don't recommend it, but you can get by. But when you have containers that are in baking hot sun, these things dry out so quickly. It's not an option. You have to do irrigation.
Yeah, I have hand watered on this roof for 10 years. And it pretty much means you have to be home
hours a day,
every single day. During the heat of the summer season. I can't, if I go on vacation, I have to have somebody come and do the watering for me.
And they're not gonna do it the right way.
Probably not. And if they miss a day or two, that's all it takes in the heat of summer when you've got these planters that are full and the roots are all the way to the edges. It could take 1 or 2 days. I went away last summer for a long weekend and I thought it's gonna be fine. I lost 5 shrubs that I had taken years to nurture and cultivate. In one long weekend, they were gone, they were dead.
And here's the thing, I am an avid gardener. I love gardening. I do it at my house. I bought my house because it had a 54-foot wide in the city of Chicago, which is huge. I can't water my plants enough. So finally, a few years ago, I broke down and had my irrigation contractor come and install an irrigation system.
And I'm so excited about this because for the first time, I mean, this summer, and you have installed irrigation for me on the other side of the deck. And it's been a game changer. I don't have to worry as much. I can enjoy the planting and the pruning and that sort of thing. Now, let's talk about what's happening over here. I'm gonna hop over. Veradek sends these insulated panels. I'm a big fan of insulation. Craig and I have agreed to disagree
We are gonna agree to disagree on this. And the reason why, the thing that causes the most problems with plants in containers on a roof deck is not that they get cold. In the winter, they're cold, then they're hot, then they're cold, then they're hot. It's the freeze-thaw cycles. And I'm sorry, but 1 inch of foam insulation is not going to prevent this planter from not suffering freeze-thaw cycles throughout the winter. My recommendation is don't worry about the foam. Again, we are agreeing to disagree on this.
Yep. So the idea, as Craig said, is that the freeze-thaw cycle is actually the worst part. I can lose plants in containers on the most mild winter, and I'm like, oh man, like it's a mild winter, I'm losing all these plants. And folks are like, what do you mean it was so mild? And I'm like, that's because
it's because of the freeze-thaw
cycle. So my thinking on that is any insulation that I can add into a planter to sort of buffer that root ball or that root mass from that is a win. Now,
so how I think about this, and I'm a little bit different because I'm doing this for other people. So I've been doing landscaping now for 30 years. And in that time, I have never had a single client, not one, come to me and say, Craig, can I have a high maintenance landscaping?
Yeah.
Not one of them. I want to put bulletproof plants in here. So when I'm planning on installing plant material in containers on a roof deck, there are two types that I look for. One is a plant that grows on the south face of a mountain slope. It's all the same conditions: low soil volumes, high wind exposure, high sun exposure, extreme freeze-thaw cycles. So blue spruce, juniper, like these are plants that just grow naturally in that environment. The other kind I refer to as the weeds, and these can be lovely weeds.
I'm a fan of weeds, especially in parkway gardening. Yeah.
So these are things like lilacs or hydrangea, like the paniculata hydrangea, things that are going to be extremely durable and they just don't care. There are perennials that will do well. So, do your research. University extensions will have here are plant lists for green roof plants in our area. That's always a great option if you're looking for green roof perennials, because they're going to have been tested.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned reaching out to your local extension, county extension, because what will do well on a roof here in Chicago versus a roof down in St. Louis versus a roof down in Florida or Atlanta, it's all going to be different based on your climate, your growing zone. Here in Chicago, we're it depends on who you ask. Some would say 6A, some would say 5B.
Yeah.
So, and probably depends a little bit on the year. I like to, and I would imagine you agree, that I tend to look for hardier plants. Down to zone 4 is my preference for roof deck container plants. So knowing your zone and then maybe going a zone or 2 below that, just so they're a little bit more tolerant.
And the other thing is you can play around with this on your roof deck, where if that container in the winter is in full shade, it's not going to go through those freeze-thaw cycles. So you can use different plants and experiment with that based on how much sun and shade that container is going to get in the winter. If the planter is right up against the north face of a parapet wall, you're going to have more success with a wider variety of plant material.
So we've got the insulation in here now, and the question for you is, are you on team insulation or team no insulation? You can leave those in the comments and let us know what you think. We've got this pretty much ready to go.
Yeah, the last thing that we're gonna do, we use a product that's called Anka-Drain. So this is the drainage layer that we use. It has a spun plastic base that it's a 1/2 inch thick, that allows water to drain freely underneath it. And then it has a heavy duty landscape fabric. And then this is how we keep soil from clogging up the drain holes. There are other methods. People will a lot of times put a washed stone and then just a regular landscape fabric. The guys are they're bringing too much heavy stuff up onto roof decks as is. So this Anka-Drain, even though it's more expensive, it's less labor for us.
Yeah, I can see that because it's textured like that, it just gives a little bit of buffer between the bottom. It's gonna resist.
And this is structural too, so it doesn't compress.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's great. So basically, once we get this down into here, these will be ready for soil.
They're ready for soil.
And then we've got a pretty lightweight soil mix.
So this is an engineered soil, which means it has no soil in it. It comes from Midwest Trading. I would love if Midwest Trading would sponsor me.
Yeah, because you use a lot of this?
We buy a lot of this product. Basically, there's no soil in it. This one, I believe, uses...
it looks like a Koya blend?
Core blend.
Yeah.
And then when it's fully saturated, so I don't think about dry weight on a roof deck, I think about saturated weight. When this is fully saturated, it's about 99 pounds per cubic foot. That adds up very, very quickly.
Yeah.
A planter like this is probably going to So these are basically 3 cubic feet per planter, and they're gonna take at least 3 bags each. I mean, right there, you're looking at 900 pounds. So like the weight load, you really have to think about these things when you're working on a roof.
That's a good reminder to everybody. If you're doing a project like this up on your roof, it really does pay to work with professionals. As you know, I've been doing this by myself for a long time, but to do something like this, to do something serious where you're adding a lot of weight, I really wanted to call in somebody that I trusted, somebody that I know is a professional at working in these spaces. They have engineers on staff, architects, landscape architects. So,
and we're fully insured.
Yeah. As you know, this is not my typical blend, right? But we're going with this because I told Craig at the very beginning, said, I'm done hauling up soil. I've hauled up so many bags of soil onto this roof. If you are planting at home, the planting mix that I like to use in most of my containers is just a 50% perlite blend with just a bag of your typical potting mix. So it's a typical bag of potting mix, unfortunately, is usually made out of peat moss. It's not something that I like to use, but if you're using 50% perlite, you're really aerating it, you're lightening up that soil quite a bit. That can get you by in a pinch, but I love that this is a Cococoya product versus a peat moss product.
The other blend that I know gets used a lot, particularly if you're doing a roof deck project where you're like a green roof where you want to grow vegetables, is they have expanded shale. So they basically take shale, they heat it up to like 1200 degrees and it pops like popcorn. So it's really open and light. And then they'll, so like the Botanic Gardens green roof on their science building, it's expanded shale and horse manure. So that's all that they use for their soil blend, which is extremely lightweight. It's probably lighter than this.
That's amazing. And I'll have to add some sort of organic supplement to these beds, I guess you can call them now, these containers.
I'm gonna give you a hot tip. So our arborist, Kevin White from Save a Tree, he's the best in the city. He is recommending not fertilizing trees and shrubs anymore. He is strongly recommending using kelp. It's liquid, but it's not technically a fertilizer. It really just feeds the soil.
Okay.
So it's a interaction between the roots and the living organisms.
Very
in the
low
soil.
nitrogen,
Yeah,
very low.
No nitrogen.
No nitrogen.
So you can apply it as often as you want without worry about burning your plants.
Interesting recommendation. We've got these lined up and ready to go. So I think if you stay tuned in the spring, I think we're gonna wait till the spring to put the Espalier apple trees in. But I wanted to get this on film, on camera for you so you can see what this space looks like raw, so that you can see all the work and the planning, the many hands that go into making a project like this work. I have historically spent a lot of time on this channel showing you the beautiful end results of what I create with my houseplants, and that's not really fair. I want to bring you along on this whole journey, and so this is a part of it. You get to see everything that goes into it. So when the trees are planted next spring, and this space looks amazing, because I know it will, you'll know all the hard work that went into it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.